Hello everyone, Kid here, back with another video. Today for you guys, I'm going to be back with part 2 of this Yahweh document I have here. I think I'm up to number 74. I'll leave a link to this down in the description box below, along with email. You can email us at themills@gmail.com for private consultation, or for the dude, let me get right into it. Number 74. A man who has an abnormal discharge must bring a sacrifice. Leviticus 15/13. When a man is cleansed from his discharge, he is to count off seven clear days for his cleansing. He must wash his clothes and bathe himself with running water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day he must take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and come in front of Yahweh to the entrance to the tent of meeting, and give them to the priest. Number 75. A woman who has an abnormal discharge must bring a sacrifice. Leviticus 15/28. When her discharge has finally stopped, she must count off 7 clear days, then she will be clean. On the 8th day she must take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The priest is to kill one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. In this way he will make atonement for her before Yahweh for the uncleanness of her discharge. Zavah. Number 76. A woman must bring a sacrifice after childbirth. Leviticus 12/6. When the days of her purification are over, whether for a son or a daughter, then she shall bring to the priest a lamb of the first year as a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering, to the entrance of the tent of meeting. Number 77. A leper must bring a sacrifice after he has been cleansed. Leviticus 14/2. This shall be the law for the leprous or deceased person for the day of his cleansing, when he shall be brought to the priest. On the 8th day he must bring 2 male lambs and 1 ewe lamb, each of the first year and each without blemish, along with 3/10 of an ephah, about 6 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and a log of oil, about 2/3 of a pint of oil. Number 78. The first tithe is holy and belongs to Yahweh. Leviticus 27/30. And all that tithe, that is 1/10 of everything from the land, of the seed of the land, of the fruit of the tree, belongs to Yahweh. It is holy to Yahweh. If a man will at all redeem any of his tithes, he must add 1/5 to the value of it. Number 79. The firstborn of clean animals are holy and belong to Yahweh. Exodus 13/2. Consecrate, sanctifying to me every firstborn male. The first offspring of every womb among the children of Israel belongs to me, both of man and animal. It is mine. 80. The firstborn sons belong to Yahweh, but may be redeemed. 80. The firstborn sons belong to Yahweh, but may be redeemed. Exodus 34/19. The first offspring of every womb belongs to me, including the firstborn males of your livestock, whether from herd or flock. 81. The firstling of a donkey must be redeemed. Exodus 34/20. But the firstling of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. If you will not redeem him, then you shall break his neck. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and none shall appear in front of me empty-handed. 83. All tithes and offerings must be brought or sent to the sanctuary of Yahweh. Deuteronomy 12/5. But you are to seek the habitation of your father, the house of Yahweh, the place which Yahweh your father shall choose out of all your tribes to establish his name, and there you must go. 84. The sanctuary of Yahweh is the only place Yahweh has chosen to receive tithes, sacrifices, and offerings. Deuteronomy 12/13. Be careful not to sacrifice your burnt offerings in every place you please. Number 85. The blood of the sacrifices must be poured out on the altar of Yahweh for atonement. Deuteronomy 12/27. There you must offer your burnt offerings, both the meat and the blood. on the altar of Yahweh your Father, and the blood of your sacrifices shall be poured out on the altar of Yahweh your Father, and then you shall eat the meat. It is the sanctified animals which have become blemished must be redeemed. Deuteronomy 15:19. All the firstborn males that come from the herd of your flock must sanctify and set apart to Yahweh your Father. You must do no work with the firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. Number 87. Any animal exchanged for an offering is also holy. Leviticus 27:10. He must not exchange it or substitute a worthy one for a bad one, or a bad one for a worthy one. If he should substitute one animal for another, both it and the substitute become holy. Number 88. The priests are to eat the meat of the consecrated offerings. Exodus 29:33. They are to eat these things which the atonement was made to consecrate and sanctify them. But a stranger shall not eat these, because these are holy. 89. The priests are to eat the remainder of the grain offering. Leviticus 10:12. Then Moses spoke to Aaron and Eleazar and Ithamar, his sons who were left, take the grain offering that remains of the offerings made by fire to Yahweh, and eat it without leaven beside the altar, for it is most holy. 90. Consecrated meat of an offering which becomes unclean must be burned. Leviticus 7:19. The meat that touches any unclean thing shall not be eaten. It must be burned with fire. As for the other clean meat, all who are clean may eat of it. Number 91. Consecrated meat of an offering not eaten within its appointed time must be burned. Leviticus 7:17. The remainder of the meat of this offering must be burned with fire on the third day. 4. Vows. Number 92. A Nazirite must let his hair grow during the period of separation. Numbers 6/5. During the entire period of his vows of separation, no razor may be used on his head. He must be holy until the period of his separation to Yahweh is over. He must let the hair of his head grow long. 94. Vows and oaths to Yahweh must be kept. Deuteronomy 23/21. If you make a vow to Yahweh. Number 94. Vows and oaths to Yahweh must be kept. If you make a vow to Yahweh, you must not delay to pay it, for Yahweh your Father will certainly demand it of you, and you will be guilty of sin. Number 95. The law of binding and losing a vow. Numbers 30/2. When a man vows a vow to Yahweh, or vows an oath to bind himself to some pledge, he shall not break his word. He must do everything he said he would do. When a young woman, still living in her father's house, vows a vow to Yahweh, or vows an oath to bind herself to some pledge, and her father hears about her vow or pledge, but says nothing to her, then all her vows and every pledge by which she has obligated herself will stand. But if her father forbids her when he hears about it, none of her vows or pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. Yahweh will release her, because her father has forbidden her. If she marries after she makes a vow, or after she utters a rash promise by which she obligates herself. But if her husband forbids her when he hears about it, he nullifies the vow that obligates her, or the rash promise by which she has obligated herself, and Yahweh will release her. Any vow or pledge taken by a widow or divorced woman will be binding upon her. 10. If a woman living with her husband makes a vow, or obligates herself by a pledge under oath, and her husband hears about it, but says nothing to her, and does not forbid her, then all her vows or the pledges she has obligated herself to will stand. But if her husband nullifies them when he hears about them, then none of the vows or pledges that came from her mouth will stand. Her husband has forbidden them, and Yahweh will release her. Her husband may confirm her vow, or her husband may make it void. But if her husband says nothing to her about it from day to day, then he confirms all her vows or the pledges binding upon her. He has confirmed them by saying nothing to her when he hears about them. If he, however, nullifies them sometime after he hears about them, then he is responsible for her guilt. These are the statutes Yahweh gave Moses about concerning relationships between man and his wife, and between a father and his young daughter still living in his house. Number 5. Purity. 96. Anyone who touches or eats the carcass of an unclean animal becomes unclean. Leviticus 11/8. Their meat you shall not eat, and their carcasses you shall not touch. They are unclean to you. Number 97. Anyone who touches or eats the carcass of a clean animal that dies of itself, or is torn by wild animals, becomes unclean. Leviticus 11/39. If an animal you are allowed to eat dies, he who touches its carcass shall be unclean until sunset. Anyone who eats of its carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until sunset. He also carries its carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until sunset. 98. Articles that come in contact with sources of uncleanness become unclean. Leviticus 11/32. When one of them dies and falls on something, that article, whatever its use, shall be unclean. Whether an item of wood, clothing, skin, or sack, whatever item it is used in work, it must be put in water, and it shall be unclean until sunset. Then it shall be clean. 99. Number 99. Menstruous women are unclean. Leviticus 15/19. When a woman's flow of blood has ended, she will continue in her impurity for 7 days. Anyone who touches her during this time will be unclean until sunset. Number 100. Number 100. Women after childbirth are unclean. Leviticus 12/2. Speak to the children of Israel, saying, if a woman has conceived and gives birth to a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, as in the days of her monthly period she shall be unclean. Number 101. Anyone with a spreading skin disease is unclean. Leviticus 12/2. Anyone who has a swelling, a rash, or bright spot on his skin that may become an infectious skin disease like leprosy, then he shall be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons the priest. 102. Any clothing contaminated with a spreading disease is unclean. Leviticus 13/47. And if any clothing is contaminated with mildew, woolen or linen clothing, the priest is to examine the mildew and isolate the article in question for 7 days. 103. A house contaminated by a spreading disease is unclean. Leviticus 14/34. When you enter the land of Canaan, which I give you as a possession, and I put a spreading mildew in a house in that land, then the priest is to go and examine it again, and if the mildew has spread in the house, it is destructive mildew, the house is unclean. 104. A man having an abnormal discharge is unclean. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when any man has a discharge, the discharge is unclean. 105. Anyone or anything coming into contact with semen becomes unclean. Leviticus 15/16. When any man has an emission of semen, then he shall bathe all his body in water, and he will be unclean until sunset. Any clothing or leather that has semen on it must be washed with water, and it will be unclean until sunset. When a man lies with a woman and there is an emission of semen, both must bathe with water. They will be unclean until sunset. 107. A human corpse and anyone who touches it is unclean. He who touches the dead body of anyone shall be unclean for 7 days. 108. The water of purification purifies the unclean. Numbers 19/9. Then a man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the red heifer and put them in a clean place outside the camp. They shall be kept by them for the congregation of the children of Israel, for the water of purification from impurity. This is for purifying from sin. Yeah, I'm just gonna end it off here, guys. Sorry if I sound a bit sick. I'm trying my best to cut everything out. But yeah, I'll make another part to this. This one's a bit shorter than the last one, and I'll see you guys next video. And like, share, and subscribe. Yeah, not to. Have a nice day. Goodbye.